Where to move higher director. Sabakan from the Department of Permitting Services to do any other department worker here?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. That's Mr. Manga, John. Welcome to East County. So thank you. I would like to say thanks to Robin Riley and her staff for hosting us year in and year out. They appreciate it. Just a couple of housekeeping things. If you want to use the restroom, just outside of this hall, right across, the men and the women out there. And again, thank you for checking that quick survey. We'll have one right after it. We acknowledge your presence, but hopefully, we make sure that your input is part of the process the county executive has outlined. Without further ado, I just want to go over the agenda. I'll introduce the county executive. He will do a presentation and talk very briefly, and then he will open up the session to questions and answers and the dialogue with our residents. Again, thank you, and I want to also say special thanks to our colleagues in the Office of Management and Budget who are here today. We continue to be supportive in this process. At this time, I would like to call upon Pete Miokin, who is the chair of the East County East County Citizens Advisory Board, to come and just say a word of welcome to you.
You can try to raise them.
Thank you, Julie. My name is Peter Miokin. I'm the chair of the East County Citizens Advisory Board. One of the questions up there was, what did you expect out of this meeting? Your participation in the county. That's what we do. We're citizens who work under the county executive's office, representing your interests, and basically anybody who lives in East County. We're a group of 18 members, each representing an area. For instance, I represent the Fairland, Tamarack Triangle, and just across the border from Goldsville. So we address the issues that the citizens within our community has, and then we bring it to the board and talk about it. We talk about policy that's coming out of the either the council, the county executive's office, or the planning board, and we opine upon that. We can't lobby the government before we're members of the county executive's office, but we can opine. But at the same time, as private citizens, we can lobby for our own interests in front of the council also. So we have that duality of roles. Again, we just need to be careful that we don't cross the boundaries of the charter. But anyway, I thank you. If you're interested, do come to the board meetings. It's held on the first Wednesday of every month. And you're also welcome to the two committee meetings. One's the quality of life meeting, and the other is the Planning Economic Development Committee. Those are held the second Monday and Wednesday of the month. So thank you, welcome, and enjoy.
So we have the board members who are present to stand up so they can be recognized. Please stand, board members. Thank you. And I will give a list before I introduce the executive to recognize one of the most important people here, the director of the Office of Management and Budget, Ms. Jenny Bryan, is in the back here. Please recognize her. Thank you. And at this time, I would like to call on our leader, our County Executive Mark Eldridge. He doesn't need much introduction for most of you. You see him virtually probably every day. And at this time, I would like to call on him to come lead us to this process. Mark Eldridge, County Executive.
thank you all for being here tonight. This is my sixth go-round of doing this as county executive. I've been doing it since I got elected. We moved them to the beginning of the budget process, so this is the budget process, it's more meaningful. Do these meetings before we do the budget. We do these meetings after we're done the budget. And we need, we're trying to get out early, and we're going to continue to get that. We're going to talk a little bit about the budget. We're in the planning stages. We don't have anything you can play out. What we're going to say, you know, the school budget's going to be half of our total budget. We know that we'll be spending over $400 million on interest, bond payments. The part of our budget that is actually goes to services with county money is only about $1.2 billion. So it's a lot less than the $7 billion that's in the total budget. And that's what we'll be making decisions about after we do this round of meetings. So I've got 11 meetings scheduled. I think I've got one more that will probably get scheduled. So we're going out and doing these all over the county. So every region service center will get a meeting. So the first thing I want to talk about is that the county has two budgets. And I'm going to stand sideways so I can see what's up there. The two budgets. So there are two parts of the county budget process. One part is the operating. This is where we pay for most of the people in the county. It's your K-12 education, early childhood education, community development, community development and housing, debt service, economic development, environmental protection, all those things are located inside our operating. Those are things we do every day. And people work every day in these good jobs to do this. And so that's one set part of the budget. The other side of the budget is the capital budget. The capital budget is about facilities. When this library, the rec center was built, it was in the capital budget as part of the capital budget. Any of the road projects that are county road projects, so the BRC on 29, the buses are in our capital budget, not in the operating budget, because they're one-time expenditures. You're buying a building, you're buying a bus, you're buying a place for fire stations, you're building water and sewer facilities, you're building swimming pools, you're repairing them. All those things are capital budgets. That's how our budget is split. And the big part of this year will be our operating budget. That is the biggest part of the county budget. And so this shows the division of where money goes in the county. And I'll start on this is where the money comes from. So on the right-hand side, the dark blue area is we get about $2.285 billion in property tax. And we get $2,051,000 in income tax. So that's the total of money we get. We get intergovernmental transfers of about $1.5 billion. That's the same thing as money for schools. They've given us any share of the transportation projects. That all comes from the state. And then services we charge for bring in about $481 million. Other taxes, which tend to be pretty small, at $327 million, and fines and miscellaneous are $246 million, and the transfer and renovation tax, which are the taxes people pay when they sell a house. Those taxes bring in another $162 million. So that's what we're working with in terms of resources. This is where that money goes. The Montgomery County Public Schools eat up 47% of the budget. And that's 3.332 billion. Montgomery College takes about $334 billion. And public safety, which is the biggest expenditure of county services, it takes $755 billion. It's police, it's fire, it's the jail, it's all kinds of services for the county. provide for the public safety. Then the next biggest chunk of money is health and human services. And that's everything we do in terms of running clinics, providing vaccinations and shots, people who work on support programs for people in low income and qualify for some of the programs that the county has. And they use $500 million. So you can see what's the money they spend on public safety and human service. General government, which is everything the government does that's not specific to a particular area, is $396 million. And transportation is $286 million. And that is totally inadequate money for the community. The environment is spending $200 million on things to improve the environment. A lot of that people will see eventually it's stormwater work in your community because we're getting more floods than we used to get. That's the climate change, and we're going to be spending more money on flood mitigation. Housing, well, next one is grants. Grants, insurance, and the earned income tax credit cost us another $195 million. Libraries, culture, and recreation is $128 million. Housing is $129 million. And the contribution to employee retirement is $103 billion. The operational expenses are $80 million, and then park and planning is $205 million. So that's where the money goes. So most of the money is going to the schools, the largest single user of money. Public safety and health and human services are the next biggest chunk of money, and then everything else gets a lot smaller. So that's what we're limited to. So when we're making decisions in the coming year, we're mostly going to be deciding schools are pretty much set. They're going to get what they got last year plus an adjustment for inflation, maybe a little more. Montgomery College has been pretty steady. Public safety, we put more money into public safety because of the crime issues we've been having, but it's not like tens of millions of dollars more, it's just a little more. And health and human services, we expanded a lot of our health and human services over the last 5 years. So we put more money into child care than we ever put into child care before. We provide a lot more community services than we were doing. That's another big chunk of it. And everything else just gets smaller. So that's how I have to make decisions. And so whatever we're talking about tonight will be mostly money that fits in the smaller side of the chart. And this is other commitments of the revenue we made. So we take a capital budget funding of about $51 million. This is cash that we take. We don't, it's for transportation projects usually, and we're not using bonds, we'll be using cash from the county. We're doing that instead of borrowing. OPEB pensions and reserves is $190 million. Debt service is $452 million. We have a lot of debt service because if you're building transportation, or you're building buildings or school buildings, you have to borrow money, you have to pay interest on the money. And so it takes a lot of money, a lot of our spending goes into paying on the debt service. The rest of the budget is a
whopping $466 million. And the rest of public safety is $752 million. So you can see where the bulk of the spending in the county goes. So schools remain the biggest piece at $54.4 billion. So that should give you some idea of where the money goes in the county in broad categories. So I want to talk a little bit so you understand what our budget challenges are. We are at the top of the income tax that the county is allowed to charge. So we will not get any more money out of income taxes. We're not allowed to raise the rates on income taxes. So they are fixed where they are right now. Property taxes, it takes a large number of council members to vote for raising property taxes. One single council member can block a raise to property taxes. So if you want to do more, you've got to figure out how you get more money out of one of the taxes that the county has available to it. Our resources are constrained because you have limited ways of changing the resources. So there's a long list of things I would like to do. There's a long list of things that we tried to do in the last budget, but if we don't have the resources, they don't happen. And that was, we left a lot of things on the table that we wanted to do last year that we couldn't raise the money for. We have the infrastructure demands in the county are real. We need to build a transportation system, a rapid transit system that we've been working on for, goes back to 2007 or 8, so we've been working on it for 16 years. We don't have anything significantly built yet, and so that's because we've had a lack of money. We've never been able to do a major capital project to build transportation. It's something that holds the county back in terms of economic development. We have inflation and financial market conditions, so everything gets more expensive, and COVID drove everything up higher than normal inflation rates because of COVID. They haven't come back down. People have looked at the problem. It's basically not because of a shortage of good or because costs of doing business rose, but mostly because people decided they can make more profits, and they have not reduced their profit expectations. And that's one thing that in the private sector, they can raise their prices anywhere they want, and there's no controls on that. And so if they decide they want to make more money, they make more money. If you're working for a living, you don't get to decide you're going to make more money. If somebody doesn't pay you what you think you're worth, you have a choice of taking it or leaving it. If you're the private sector and you depend on them to provide housing or services, you don't have any choice. You either buy it or you don't buy it. But you don't have the option of getting a lower price because you think it's too high. Maintenance of effort and per pupil costs. We're required by the state to maintain basically levels funding that gets adjusted for population growth and inflation to the schools. So it's almost impossible for the schools to get less money than they got in the previous year. As school population grows, then the school spending automatically grows with it. And that's something else that's a state law. Real estate tax and recordation and transfer taxes can be volatile, which means they can change a lot. And for us, the real estate tax is pretty solid. Our assessments, we already know that our assessments have gone up again, so we'll know we'll get more real estate tax on the straight tax on property. But recordation and transfer taxes depend on sales of property. And because of COVID, we haven't gotten out of it yet. Sales of property are lower than they had been before. There are fewer sales. So the fewer sales there are, the less money the county gets out of the recordation tax. And last year, we were probably in the order of, I think, $70 million a swing from where we were before. We lost about $70 million in revenue last year because of the lower transfers and sales in Montgomery County. And $70 million has a big effect on our budget in terms of what we can and can't do. And the last one is recruitment and retention challenges. Montgomery County is a business like all the other businesses, and the cost of labor has gone up pretty substantially. And if we want to retain people working in Montgomery County, we have to pay more to have them work here. And benefits go up, particularly healthcare benefits, because the medical system tends to be not properly regulated. And so the rise in medical costs affects us just like it affects every business in Montgomery County. This is a little slide about what's happened to our schools. The dotted gray line is what we spent in 2024 dollars. It's all these numbers are adjusted for inflation, but our peak year was 2010, and we were spending about $22,800 per student. Today, we're spending about $20,639 per student. So we're 10% below where we were 14 years ago. When you adjust for, well, the other chart is county per student expenditure in $24. Which one is the adjusted one for inflation, for including state money? Was the top one the one including state money? Go back. The top one includes state money. The bottom one is just county money. And for the county spending, the county was spending $16,000 a pupil in 2010. Now we're spending $13,000 a pupil. So we're spending about 3,000 less. So if anybody wonders what challenges the schools are facing, part of the challenge is we're not able to fund them at the level we funded them before. And it shows up in real things such as lack of aides in the classroom, reduction of support for students in the school, the inability to hire enough social workers and mental health workers in the school is all driven by the lack of money to pay for this. I proposed the 10-cent tax increase a couple of years ago to try to get the school system not caught up. It wouldn't have got us all the way caught up, but it would have made a difference. The council made a decision not only not to fund it, but to tell the school system to spend $33 million of federal money on the schools. A year later, the federal money was gone, and that's what happened to us this year. We had to fill a $33 million hole in the school budget because instead of raising the taxes another penny and a half, the council chose not to do it. So that created a problem because that $33 million basically came out of other programs in the county. This is how we rank compared to other jurisdictions in the state of Maryland. So Montgomery County used to be at the top of per pupil spending. Now Baltimore City's at the top. Howard County's higher than this. Prince George's County is higher than us. So we're the little yellow dot over there. And the counties that are lower are Baltimore County and Anne Arundel County. So whereas we used to spend substantially more than we do now, we've reduced our spending, and this is not the right place to be reducing our spending. So this is borrowing and investing. When I came on the council, the county was borrowing about $340 million a year to build things. Today, we're borrowing $280 million a year to build things. So over 6 years, we're spending $360 fewer dollars on transportation, schools, and buildings we need in the county. And that's also not healthy. We're not keeping pace with inflation. And it's not like everybody doesn't know there's inflation. So a decision not to change the capital spending is a decision not to build what you need to build. Because nothing rebuild costs the same as it did 6 years ago. And this is what you would need to spend to maintain a $300 million in buying power. And we would need to be almost at $500 million to be where we were if we were spending $300 million. So it's a long way up, and we're just not doing what we need to do in that area. And it's not because we don't want to, but it's because we don't have the revenues to do it. We have a need for restructuring taxes in this county. Currently, property taxes and real estate tax structure centers on the taxation of residential development. If you compare Montgomery County to, say, Fairfax, where they say everybody goes, all the businesses go, Montgomery County's base tax rate is $1.04. If you add on the state tax, it's $1.15. If you're in Fairfax County, the base rate for residents is $1.12. If you're commercial property, the base rate is $1.27, actually $1.28. And if you're building in Tyson's Corner, your tax rate's over $1.50. So anybody who tells you Montgomery County is an expensive tax jurisdiction for businesses, it's flat out false. And they're spending $50 cents more on a tax rate to go to Virginia than they spend over here. So anybody who tells you these businesses are fleeing Montgomery County to go to low tax Virginia, it's flat out not true. If you're a developer, you pay more over there than you pay over here. The difference between us and them is the taxes in Virginia, the developers asked for. And the taxes in Virginia are only used, that extra bump above $1.12 is only used on transportation projects, which are invested in places in Virginia where they're trying to encourage growth. And you can see it in Tyson's Corner. They poured a fortune into Tyson's Corner to make that the most attractive place to build in Fairfax County. We do nothing like that. We have no ability to raise the dollars with our current tax structure. So for those of you who want to see economic progress, we need to follow the path that Virginia followed. We need to hit the commercial property, not residential property, with a higher level of taxation, build the infrastructure that they need to be successful, and let the jobs start coming here like they went to Northern Virginia. It's not a mystery why they went there. They built a subway system. Every Virginia county's got bus rapid transit systems that are for real. And Montgomery County hasn't even built the first real bus rapid transit piece of our system. So we suffer from not being able to raise money adequately. It also handicaps our ability to build schools. Montgomery County is now a mature and developed community, and to maintain our competitive edge, we really don't have a choice but to look at what other people are doing. It's a mistake to stay where we are right now, and it's going to continue to prevent us from developing the way Virginia is. So if you want all the nice things that Virginia has, you need to look at what they did to get it. And that's what this county's avoided doing for as long as I was on the council. We refused to look at Virginia as a model for how to do economic development. It's even worse right now because Park and Planning is proposing to make it even less of a tax on developers to build in Montgomery County, including commercial property, whereas Virginia raised their taxes on commercial property 2.5 cents this year and on residential. So we're losing this battle, and we're losing it because we refuse to deal with reality here. And we need to wrap our heads around what you need to do to be a truly competitive jurisdiction. Northern Virginia counties figured this out. Montgomery County has not figured it out. There is one taxing district in Northern Virginia. It's the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. They produce $500 million a year that's split among the 5 Northern Virginia counties. That doesn't count the $1.50 property tax that they raise in Virginia. So we're not even close to raising the money Virginia does. So it's not a small wonder why we don't have the kind of transportation that Northern Virginia does. And none of what we want to do would affect residents. We are not looking to raise taxes on residential property. I want to be clear about that. That is not the problem, and it's not where we need to go. This is what I was talking about, the volatility of recordation taxes. You can see from 2013 to 2021, things are kind of level. They're a little above the gray line, a little below the gray line. In 22, our transfer taxes went way up, but then 2 years later, they dropped way down. And so we've seen this volatility, and it's hard to plan. If it had always stayed along that gray line, we could know what we were planning for every year, but we don't know what we're planning for in terms of revenue between 2023, I guess, and 2025. So we've had to make do with less revenue to fund the things we need to fund. This is, what I was explaining before. This is commercial property in the District of Columbia. They're even worse than Fairfax. If you're in DC and your property is worth $10 million, you pay $1.89. If your property is $5 million, you pay $1.65. And if your property is less than that, you're down around your $1.04, which is where we are. But if your residential property in DC, you're paying 85 cents, and we're paying $1.15 if you include the state tax. So because of these rates on commercial property, homeowners in DC get to pay a lower rate on their taxes. And this is something, again, an example of what we could do. Not quite that, I don't want to go that high, but we could do things like this if we had the political will to do it. The middle chart is Fairfax County, and you can see where they are in terms of commercial and residential as a base tax, and you can see what happens when you add on the other taxes in Tyson's Corner. You wind up at $1.51. And ours is $1.15, but again, 11 cents of $1.15 is going to the state, not going to the county, whereas every penny in Fairfax County is going to Fairfax County. This is another comparative slide. It shows the commercial tax burden. And you can see on the left-hand side, this is for a small corporation. For a small corporation, DC is the most expensive place. Alexandria is next. Arlington's next. Fairfax is next. Prince George's is next. The cheapest place on the chart to develop is Montgomery County. We're at the bottom. If you're a large corporation, DC is the most expensive, then Alexandria, then Arlington, then Fairfax, then Prince George's, and the cheapest place for large corporations, still Montgomery County. So this is not a helpful way for us to move a county forward. So I've kind of explained to you the limits that we've got. We're in the process of thinking about what we're going to do and trying to make plans for it. We don't yet have revenue estimates. We won't get revenue estimates. We'll get a state revision projection, which is different than based what they know for sure. We're going to get different projection from the state in about 2 weeks. We'll start seeing 2 big disbursements of taxes to Montgomery County in November and then either the end of January, early February. Then we'll know better where we are. The problem with that is we'll already be working on the budget, and so we don't know whether we're going to have more money or less money than we think. So we're trying to figure out how to get the state to align their information with county budgets so that we have a better idea how much money we're working with. Because we've been in this situation before. We produce a budget by February, and we have to make cuts in it by the time we provided that to the council in March because revenues from the state turned out to be less than they thought we were going to be. But that's a problem we work with. So with all that said, I'm open to taking questions now. And I think somebody's got a mic out there.
Yes, we have Cicero Salas, our White Oak Planning Manager, who will just walk around. You raise your hand, the county executive will recognize you. He will hold on to the mic. Please make your question very short or your comment very, very short because we have a lot of people who want to speak. So, county executive, you're here.
Good night, everyone. My name is Lokman Safai. I'm representing the Apuan community in the Silver Spring, White Oak, and Clive Apartments. And definitely we have other country refugees as well in our community. So I wanted to know that, many fresh arrivals coming to this county, and most of them, they are Apuan refugees. They are coming through a legal process. It's called SIV. All those people who have worked for the U.S. government and U.S. funded projects. So the Department of State, they are shifting the people to this county. So what's happening now, the resettlement agencies are only paying like 1 or 2 months rent, and then they leave them alone in the street. Now we have like more family, they are facing the eviction. And like they will be homeless and they have no source for paying their rents. They are really in critical situation. We have many handicaps in these families. We have like elder people with no people to work for them. And this is a very critical situation for them. So I wanted to know that is there any source of the funding for them to like prevent this current eviction and solve this issue like permanently in the future? Because the refugees that are coming here, the state of department, they come bringing people here, and this like not only a matter of housing, it's a matter of the moral and prestige of the government and the state and the county, and especially for the Montgomery County to resolve this issue.
So what?
I do have Imam Mohammed recruited the last minute when we found out we have an Arabic speaking coming. We didn't have accommodation, but Imam Mohammed, you're more than happy, please, to help interpret for us. If you could just allow the county executive to respond to Yuri. Yes, he spoke first, so we'll give him the opportunity to respond.
So we've already spent all the money that we put in the budget. And we know that the county is no more money in the budget. It's going to run out very shortly for evictions. I put more money in. It didn't make it all the way through. So we were in a difficult place. The federal government cut all its funding to us, and the state government cut all its funding to us. So we were able to help people when we had money from the state and federal government to support what the county has. We do not have any money to support that anymore coming from the state and federal government. So we're going to go back and see if we can get our state representatives or the governor and the federal representatives to provide us with additional money for housing support. But the problem is bigger than the Afghan community. I have people who've lived here, families have been here 300 years, and they're getting evicted. So you can't have programs that only help one group of people and don't help other groups of people who are getting evicted. Yeah.
Something like, but with the commitment of the unit, alliance to the war,
I don't want to get into U.S. foreign policy because I'm not a fan. But look, the federal government made promises maybe, but they didn't provide any money for the promises. They provided money for a little while, but that money's gone. And so without their money and without the state money, it's hard for the county to fill the gap that we weren't paying before. And there are other immigrants who are facing eviction. This is not the only immigrant group here. And they're facing eviction for the same reasons you are. Their wages, their jobs do not pay enough to pay the rent. I've got 20,000 families earning less than $30,000 a year, which makes it almost impossible to pay rent. So there are a lot of people struggling. We will try to get money from other sources. We'll see if we can get some money. We're waiting on a federal payment. We don't know when it's going to come. It's not a regular payment. It's going to be the last one-time money that we funded a lot of stuff for COVID that we're supposed to get reimbursed for by the federal government. They told us we were not going to get it when we thought we were going to get it. If we had it now, we'd be able to put some money into this. We don't have it yet. So we're going to try to fill the gap with federal and state money. And then if we get the money from the feds, we can provide more assistance. And I will put that forward to the council.
I got one question here.
Oh, you hold it. Okay. Thank you for your presentation tonight. I'm here representing a number of interfaith organizations and community organizations. Ilhan Kagri is my name. There's several problems with these communities. In particular, I'm going to speak for the Afghan community, and that is that they're facing being on the street. So the expenditure on the county is not going to go away. If you have these large families with children on the streets, the county's still going to face some kind of burden. They're not going to let them starve on the streets, I'm assuming, right? There's still going to be an expense to pick up these people. So the thing that we're really, really concerned about is how do we prevent these people being evicted onto the street immediately? Because this is now. This is happening now. Like tomorrow, the next day, I don't know when it's going to happen, but we're not talking about one or two families. There's a number of them that are going to end up with children on the streets. And you know, I understand you're saying you don't have the money, but you have to be more creative than that, because are we going to let them starve? Are we going to let them be, you know, in the snow and in the rain? There has to be.
Ilhan, I appreciate that, but there are other people who experience the exact same thing, and it is not pretty and it's not good. But the county has never been able to house everybody, ever. No, but you'll wind up with this homelessness support. You'll wind up in shelters or family shelters or things like that.
Afghans, a lot of these Afghans, if they're given some start, they do start working. They do start supporting themselves. They just need that initial start. And these are, as the gentleman pointed out, these are people who worked for the U.S. government in Afghanistan in dangerous situations and who were promised that there was going to be some kind of help for them here. They were going to be killed there. I know people whose families have been
Yes.
killed by the Taliban because they worked for the U.S. forces. So they're here because they helped Americans. Now, I know you said I didn't do that. I don't want to get into politics, but still, we as a nation promised them something, and it's not like they want to live off of, any kind of benefits. They just want to be able to get up on their feet, and it's a small price to ask. So, I know that I understand the money isn't there, but surely there must be a way, either from the federal government, you must have some kind of resources, some kind of pull, some kind of sway to be able to help these people immediately so that they don't end up on the street.
I don't know how much sway any of us has on this. We have raised this issue with the state, which has the most immediate ability to do something if they've got resources. But I think you've seen the governor has made major cuts in his budget already. So we're going to ask him to take money out of the budget to do this. It's going to come from someplace else. I'm willing to, once again, try the federal government to try to open up the tab. They're the ones that made the promises. This was not, nobody came to us and said, what's your ability? How many people can you support? And this county's been pretty welcoming about trying to support people in general. So, all the immigrant groups have gotten some level of support out of the county, but we run out sometimes. And I can tell you there are immigrants and non-immigrants who aren't being able to get support right now. It's people who've been here and totally native and people who've just come here. It is a problem for us, but our resources are limited. Yes. Yes. That we can do. I know that I think Kristen's talked to the sheriff's office. We're trying to see if we can delay things and slow them down. We're trying to see, I agree about the list because we had the list and can give it to people. We think people would be able to take some of these families in. We'll work to try to help. Yes, they could do that, but well, we can work with you to try to coordinate things to the extent that people can coordinate. If you've got people who want to cover rents, my worry is that the landlord's not going to take 1 month's rent if there's $20,000 back rent. And they may not accept that. I mean, we don't have the ability to force them to accept the rent and not evict people. We have no ability to do that. But let me try to do what I can do. I promise you we will work to try to get you a list with dates of evictions on it so you can deal with it.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Ibrahim. I'll translate all the refugees what they are need to say from Arabic to English. So I'll start with Mr. Zakaria. He's disabled. So I need to hear what he will say, and I'll translate for you.
Thank you.
يدرس ملفي انا بمصر بالبيت برضه يدرس ملفي والجيل وانا اذكر الحكومه الامريكيه بس انا جاي باحتياجات خاصه بس انا ما تعملت من ذوي الاحتياجات الخاصه نهائيا لا بالبيت، البيت حطوني حمام صغير انا مرتين مره ودرت في الحمام مدبر وراح اسعاف على المستشفى ومره هاي كسرت تجري بالحمام وتاكل قابله منقار على اي اساس انا من ذوي الاحتياجات الخاصه اسكن قابله منقار مع انه صار حريق في البيت اللي فوق مني فسكت انا بغسيل الكلى انا بغسل كلى ايدي المقطوعه ايدي المكسوره عيون مكتوفيه سكر الضغط بيجيني موظف لعندي على البيت بيعمل معي مقابله يقول لي لازم حدا يشتغل عندي. انا هذا وضعي، زوجتي مريضه حتى في عندها عمليه بعد 6 اسابيع 8 10 عندها عمليه. انا ليه بدك اجيب واحد يشتغل عندي؟ انا هاي بنتي بالنسبه لي.
Suleiman, let Ibrahim translate. Thank you, sir.
اوكي.
So what he say, I'm disabled. I came to America. He thanked the American government to bring him right here. And he's as disabled in this country. No one work with him as he's disabled. They are put him in high expensive rent and in 18th floor. And he's diabetic. He's have blood pressure, and his rent is $2,300 every month. And he has right now in the balance $17,000. And he went to the court 3 times. And as he's disabled, why he should go to the court 3 times? And from where he can pay the money, and some of the caseworkers, he come to his apartment and say for him, someone from your home, he should work. And his wife, she will have surgery after 6 weeks from right now. And in that time, and for that time, he will be out from his home because he has a eviction.
Just want to add what Ibrahim said. He mentioned that his both kidney failed, and there was a fire on top of his apartment. At that time, he was in the dialysis office. So, and he said also, the bathroom in the 1 bedroom that himself and his daughter they live, he cannot even enter the bathroom. That's why he was pushing himself and he broke his leg.
They can't do what in the bathroom?
So ADA,
There's no ADA.
He cannot fit
But
even.
that's normal. Most apartments don't.
so
يعني انا هذا وضعي وامر الله. يعني بيجيني موظف يقول لي لازم تشتغل على اسرها. انا ثاني يوم وصلت ضغطي 25.5 اسعاف على المستشفى، كان ضغطي 25.5. انا ليلي 8 متر. انا يعني عم يفرض علي انه حدا لازم يشتغل عندي، ما عندي حدا يشتغل. هاي اسرتي، هاي بنتي بالمدرسه، وهاي مريضه حتى احيانا تنسى. انا من يومين ليش شغال عندي بالبيت ليله كامله.
So what he said, this is his situation and this is his family, 1, 2, 3. And when the caseworker come to him and say for him, you should work, he can't sleep in that night, and he went to the hospital in high blood pressure for him. And the thing he say, his wife, she's forget a lot. Last night she forget the gas. All the night is open, and she's sick. So.
So I'm here using just to go outside, but very specific issues, and then I'm going to promise you, wallahi, 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 we will be welcome. Salam alaikum.
You should talk to Christine. There's some family shelter.
yes,
Big people in the family shelter.
it's yes. Okay.
I've got the next question here.
Hi, my name is Lauren, and I represent the group that has been evicted. I'm currently staying at the Red Roof Inn in Rockville, which is overflow for shelters. The conditions there are terrible. I have 3 children. We deal with police raids every day from prostitution, drug use, roaches, mice. My question is, how much of the housing budget is allocated for families like me that are in transition? Because currently right now, I'm sorry to interrupt, but currently right now, just to let you know that the general manager at the Red Roof Inn in Rockville, Claudia, is now kicking all of the 4 mothers that are on the same row as me out, trying to push us to a shelter because she said verbatim she does not like families there. She prefers single people. So question one is, what is allocated in terms of housing budget for families like me? And what are these solutions for just general managers at these overflow places? What is their accountability?
So accountability at what level? I mean, they have a choice of who they take. But they have a choice of who they take. We will follow up with Christine Hong, who is our homeless person specialist. And if I haven't heard this about Red Roof, but we can find out what the conditions, certainly we can find out from the housing department what the conditions are. She can ask, or would know better than I would what the contract specifies in terms of willingness to take people. If they've signed the contract with us to house whoever we send there, and if your housing is appropriate, where it's, is it 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom? So it's you and 3 children. Yes. So the county doesn't have a lot of doesn't have any extra housing. The housing in this county is basically all in the private sector hands. So we're limited, but we can certainly ask her about your case. I would have you do the same thing with J. Rue, give your name and contact information so that we can talk to the head of homeless services and talk about your specific case and see if there's something they can do to help you. And, as far as money goes, most of the money in the housing budget goes to either preserving existing affordable housing, which is, as you know, in short supply, otherwise you wouldn't be in this mess, and building more affordable housing so that we can house people. I've been a proponent of trying to house people, and I will be proposing legislation to require that new developments have housing that's affordable at a full range of incomes, rather than even our housing program requires about $60,000 in income, which used to be in the old days, might have been okay, but it's not okay now. So we're proposing like a complete communities legislation. It would also require the planning board to plan for all incomes when they're deciding a downtown or a neighborhood, because you can't only plan for the people who can afford high rents. You've got to do planning that involves people who don't have high rents. So you're a good example of why we need to change some of these policies.
We have a question here.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I have a little different take on some of this. My name's Chris King, and I'm with the New Neighbors Interfaith Alliance. We're 28-member local faith and community civic groups working together to help resettle immigrants in Montgomery County. Currently, I have right now I can see from the people here, which I didn't anticipate, that we know we're in a crisis mode, but I have something that I would like to propose to try to prevent a crisis mode in the future. And a lot of that is more efficiencies in how the community-based organizations work with the county government. Right now, we spend thousands, literally thousands, tens of thousands of volunteer hours each year helping resettle these immigrants. We pay rent for a lot of them, but we don't have that kind of resource to do it for everything. We find the medical care, and we try to work with families until they are financially and socially independent. And I think the county wins big time when that happens. The main thing that there are 2 asks that I have to be considered for the county budget. One is that there's more regular dialogues from the county with the community-based organizations supporting the folks. I can see that in the future, and I know the trend is that it is going to be largely volunteer efforts to help with a lot of things. Navigating the county resources for refugees is very, very difficult, if not close to impossible. It's frustrating for our volunteers with PhDs and graduate degrees let alone for a non-English speaking person who comes to the county for the first time.
Could you explain what you mean by navigating? I mean, what are the barriers that you see when you try to navigate?
Well, I can tell you the biggest thing I think is, and I know they want help with their current rent payments, but what we want to do is find them jobs as quickly as possible. Everybody says go to WorkSource Montgomery. We've never placed one person through WorkSource Montgomery because they're not set up. I know they must be effective for a lot of other people, but they're not set up for refugees and for, this labor force coming in. There's not things with businesses. So working all of these things, you get a script. You're told to log on the website, do this and that. Even the volunteers, who are very capable, struggle with this, and there are barriers. We see our immigrants working all over the county at places. It has to be easier to work with the county to get them jobs. So that Health and Human Services, SNAP, is a continuous problem. People don't understand that when they get an application that they have to reapply, and then it's a month or two with no food budget, which actually contributes to them getting even further behind on rent. And all of those things combined make it very hard for a really substantial, community-based organization to be effective. And a lot of times, actually, volunteers get so frustrated that they quit, which only hurts the county even more.
Right.
So we would like to say, we know that you've done things, and I actually participated in the past year with setting up more intergovernment, coordination, but that wasn't focused on the community-based organizations who are really, I would say, the front lines to most of the things here. And so in addition to what you've done, which we commend, and we are eager to see the report from the contractor, how that resulted. But in addition to that, we would really like to see that there is somebody in the county that interfaces with us as we try to help the refugees and can work these issues that we have across the board with between housing and between, the services, Medicaid and SNAP and, in jobs. But jobs to me are the biggest thing. The faster we get a person a job, the quicker their rent's going to get paid. We try to work with them on teaching budgets and doing things there that are efficient. But I think those are I think these are the systemic problems that get us in the positions we have now. In addition to the fact that the resettlement agencies have had a real downturn, a real, what they say, lack of being able to follow through with what the federal government had hoped for.
I think WorkSource does what they can to place people, but they're obviously limited because they don't make jobs. They only get the jobs that somebody says, I want an employee for this or that. And if you're not speaking the language, which they're pretty much not, that's a real barrier to being able to get it. I'm just saying it is hard to navigate that. But have you, I'm not sure WorkSource doesn't do anything. That's because that's just not true with WorkSource. Yeah. Have you met with the director of WorkSource? Have you talked to Christine Hung? She's the housing director. Have you talked to Kate Chance? She's okay. Ask Kate. Call her whatever tomorrow. Ask her if she could set up a meeting with you and at least Christine Hong in homelessness services to talk about some of the issues you have there, and we can see if we can get a meeting with WorkSource Montgomery to see what you can take here. So Jeru knows the WorkSource Montgomery people. We can talk about what it is we can possibly do. But start with Christine, at least on the homelessness services. I just don't have the personnel to create another position. Yeah. sobering to me every day I look at those numbers. I felt like with Kate, we've been working together. If there are holes in the system, let's get a meeting together and figure out what we can do to plug it.
All right, Mr.
And Drew, get her.
Yeah, Mr. Erich. Mr. Elrich.
Yeah.
We have another question here.
Oh.
Drew will take care of that.
Thank you. Hi, Mark. It's Jerry Kickinson. Thanks for coming to East County. I just have tonight I have just one kind of small request, asking you to restore funding to the rental assistance program, which would benefit not just the African refugees here tonight, but as we said, all residents in the county who might need the service. Now, I think you said you are going to try to do that next year's budget with federal and state money. You may have been implying or inferred that if you can't get that, you can't then restore funding. I would encourage you to find some county money. I think a few $1 million could help a lot of people. And as a homeowner and someone who pays a lot of taxes to the county, I don't personally benefit, but I think the county is better off spending a few $1 million to keep people in their homes than to spend that same money on hotels and shelters and other aid. So that's my request to you. Thank you.
We didn't, my office did not cut money for rental assistance. That got cut in the final budget. And we had thought that in the combination of the state and federal government completely cutting us off when they know how much the crisis is, and put us in an impossible situation. We'll certainly look at that. I was hoping that if we get the federal reimbursement, which has we've identified no thing in our budget that depends on the federal reimbursement. So there's nothing we're doing that requires us to spend that money when it comes in. So if it comes in, we'll put in a supplemental to try to deal with this and a few other things that we think were mistakes to cut. And hopefully the council will agree to use this money because it's not tax dollars and it's money we're reimbursed for. We've been reimbursed for. Hopefully they'll let us do that. I'll be sure I let you know when we do that so that you can come down and testify for it, because it's important that people realize how important this is to be able to do this. And like I said, if I had different economic circumstances, little shifts would have produced millions of dollars for us this year, and it didn't happen. Maybe next year is different. Well, they're talking about next year now. I'm thinking about what I can do now, because for a lot of people, next year is like a tad too late, because it's actually July, not January. Yes. Yes, I agree.
کله چې د افغانستان راتلم زه په سپیشل مایګرینټ ویزه کې راغلی یم. بم باندې اولاد یم، پښه مې زخمي ده، سر مې زخمي ده، 15 اولادونه لرم، 2 موږ 7 نفره یو. کله چې زه راغلی یم دې وطن ته، ما یوه ورځ هم روغه ورځ نه ده لیدلې. هره ورځ په ټینشن، هره ورځ په تکلیف. زه څنګه وکولی شم چې د ما مشر اولاد دومره یو زه دا کرایه پرېږدم؟
He's saying that he's also one of the fresh arrival to this country, and he's on special immigration visa, and he has 7 people in his family, and he has lost like some part of the body because of the explosion, working for the U.S. government and U.S. troops, and he was promised. He has like a long process of clearance and coming to this country. It took like years, and after the succeed process of that time, he shifted to the U.S. And he has 7 people in the family. And when he arrived to this country, he's saying that he's in trouble, he's under tension, he cannot pay his rent, and he cannot work as well. So he has gotten also the eviction letter. So he's like, his blood pressure is going up and down in the night, he cannot sleep. He says that when he got to this country, and he heard about the eviction letter. He has no sleep like during this time. So he's getting like problem in worse and worse.
سم د سپټمبر باندې د ما اخري تاریخ د ما فامیل وباسي زه چیرته لاړم ما خپل اولادونه د تعلیم لپاره راوستي چې دلته تعلیم وکړي او آینده روښانه ولري موږ څنګه موږ خو خپل ځان هر څه قرباني ورکړه د دې حکومت لپاره نن موږ دې ثمره وینو چې هر وخت محکمه کې بېزتي 15 وارې زه محکمې ته تللی یم چې ما خبره چا نه ده اورېدلې زه اوس چېرته لاړ شم موږ د تا نه غوښتنه کوو چې دا موږ مشکل حل کړي او جدي پاملرنه ورته وکړي.
Yeah, he's saying the last date of the eviction is that 26th of September, and he has been to the court many times, and he has been insulted because no one is listening to him. And even in the resettlement agencies, they're going to their offices, but no one is listening because he's handicapped. He cannot walk, and he cannot touch someone to make their attention. And he's like in big trouble like this. And he wants someone to pay his rent and to have something like for the future because he's here for the education of the children. And now everyone is under tension in his family.
You understand some of the issues, but and few others, finance officers are able to identify. So we will do the same thing. I will talk with my staff, go tell the teacher, talk with your friends. When the partner is using the sector, we have to fix the issues first to be your job. But definitely when you follow up from that, the use, other opportunities, they have to reduce the
All right, next question is back here.
Hi, if I can have your attention, I know it's heartbreaking to see the problem, but at the end, it's all an economic development issue. In the long term, my issue is local economy, benefit cooperation. How can we, Milton Friedman is known to say the status quo, unless it is it cannot be disrupted unless there is a crisis. When there is a crisis, what is the vision moving forward? As a champion of local economy, most jobs are created locally. As a champion of benefit cooperation that provides an opportunity for aspiring social entrepreneurs who will leverage the power of business to create wealth while they address the most urgent pressing challenge we face. My question, actually it's more of a comment or a request. The county Economic Development Corporation is a distant uncle to me. And I live in my community. I see untapped resources, untapped energy, untapped and aspiring entrepreneurs bubbling up, looking for an opportunity. What is that you can do to have some kind of listening session so that we can bridge the gap between policies and encouragement environment or ecosystem to help aspiring social entrepreneurs rise to the fullest of their potential and leverage the power of business and expand our economic base. I have one too many examples. So I think it would be wonderful if you kind of create some kind of listening session. I know a lot of people who have all kind of aspirations, all kind of ideas, and lack of policy and finance are kind of stuck. It's just a matter of being creative about everything. So that said, I'd like to thank you for a commendable leadership you've provided. I've watched you, I've supported you in these difficult times. And we can only see our way through collectively by coming up with our own local economy, local solution. And thank you for your leadership. I urge you to organize a listening session so aspiring entrepreneurs can have a chance to address their own problems, leveraging the power of business. Thank you.
Thank you. I will ask, because we have a small business program in the county. We don't call it small, but it's a business program. But it focuses a lot on small businesses. When I got elected, we resurrected the community-based economic development support that had been lost at the end before I got elected. So we brought it back. We now have people attached to every regional service center. They work with local businesses. They can meet with entrepreneurs, see who they can connect them to. I'm willing to talk about hosting something with a group of entrepreneurs because that's a place that we actually want to get into. because we know most jobs are created by small businesses. So we want to be sure we can actually create the jobs that you're talking about. So I'll talk with my staff about what they could do in terms of setting up a meeting for entrepreneurs, small entrepreneurs, not big companies.
Okay, we have a question here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rabitha Moses. A lot of you know me and a lot of you don't. Hello, Mark.
Hey.
Good to see you again. So I've been one of the people that's been doing a lot of work with the refugee families and going to court with them, going into their homes. It's really, really, really heartbreaking. Some of their children have developmental disabilities. Some of the people in the family are handicapped, but they're being told to work. Some people have 7 to 10 family members, 5, 6. So are you going to focus on taking care of your children? How can somebody, and these two gentlemen in the wheelchair are not the only one. And my friend Anas, okay, he left, but he's missing both his arms and the toes on his feet. What I do want to request, Mark, is if you can get us a meeting with Governor Westmore, and we also want to have a meeting with you. We've been working, Tino and myself and a lot of other people. And I do want to thank Kristen Ming. She's been really helpful. We want to work directly with our leaders because it's exhausting going through the middleman. And a lot of them live in conditions where they have roaches, mice, the ceiling is breaking apart. But the main thing is some of them, we also have access to the sheriff's list. Some of them are facing evictions this week, the next week, and the following week. So we want to protect our refugee community. So these are some of the most vulnerable members in our community. And I understand that housing has been an issue. It's been an ongoing issue. Another thing I want to say is if the county wasn't prepared to take care of these refugees, why did we bring them in here if we're setting them up for failure?
We didn't bring them in here. The county never said, we'll take all the people you want to send here.
Oh, who was it?
The federal government.
Okay. And then you guys agreed to it, or?
You can't agree to it. The federal government says they're going to bring people here. They set up a center. They bring people here. We tried to deal with it as best we've been able to. We've had support from some of the nonprofits. I know the work the churches have done, the interfaith group has done, but our resources are limited. We were in much better shape a year and a half ago when there was federal and state money. We no longer have the option of that. So, I mean, I'm disappointed in the federal government. I feel generally that their immigration policy in general puts the load on local governments who don't have the resources for decisions that they make. And I think the federal government ought to be funding jurisdictions like ours that are shouldering the burden of their decisions, because they get to make the decision and sound like they're heroes, and then they leave us with no money to do anything. So it's not helpful.
Mr. Kevin, thank you very much. We have one question coming to us virtually.
Got it. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Since this is a hybrid presentation, we do have a question online. Mr. County Executive, it is 8:24. We're scheduled to be here until 8:30. And this question kind of follows up with what the young lady was mentioning. It comes from Reverend Charlene Belson Selmer. Can the executive ask the state to step in and immediately stop these unscrupulous tactics of wholesale evictions that places like the Enclave are using?
I doubt if the state can stop it because all of the evictions are following Maryland law. And so the landlords have these rights to evict, and I can't think of how the government would legally say you can't exercise your rights. And this, we're confused sometimes compassion for the law. And the law is kind of soulless. The law doesn't look at who the people are who are getting hurt. The law just says this is what you have to do. And it's one of the problems. We administer things that we have to administer with not a lot of joy or satisfaction in doing it sometimes. Like, it is heartbreaking to listen to this. And it's crazy not to be able to get the federal government to step in and help. But we will make another effort to see if we can get any help out of the state, given the numbers. But we've got to give them a realistic number of what we're facing over the next 3 months, because if you get money one time and then you're back a month later asking for the same, this is never going to work. We've got to lay out what we think the problem is over a period of time and then make a decision to fund it or not going to fund it, but one way or the other. We've got to figure out how we're going to do this. We only have till 8:30. I've gone later before. Look, I'm going to do another 15 minutes, but I'll tell you, hold on a second. This is what I want to do. This immigrant discussion has been dominated the evening. I would like to hear, because I'm not going to rehash this question. I will come up with the same answer. So let's hear from people who've got some other issues they want to get, because they came out to talk to me tonight about other things I want to take. And if I've got to go 20 minutes or a half hour, I'll go 20 minutes or a half hour.
Already meeting with them, check out some problems.
Okay.
See it's right. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Doreen Valentine. I am a resident and business owner in East County and the interim chair for the African American Advisory Group. My question is this. Thought it was interesting on the pre-survey, it asked about how we individually feel like we can make impact. And I saw the slide that you put up regarding the challenges to the budget. And some of the slides on your comparison slides, you're comparing us to other counties. So if that is the case, and one other comment you made was the purse size was small for the county. If that is the case, can you give us a realistic way in which we really can impact the budget? I mean, what is the process? It sounds to me as if in some indirect way you're suggesting that we go to county council. To me, it sounded like it makes sense to raise taxes in some places, and I know that's a hot issue. But the other thing that I'm thinking about is that I don't understand how all these issues that you will hear, not only tonight, but in your other listening sessions, take priority. So the question is, how do we influence the budget?
So first place, we've never had the luxury of doing everything people want. And things that are already in the budget, like all the social programs we have in the budget, are things people have asked for before. The supports for school, early childhood education. We've put a ton of money into early childhood. We've done those because those are things people ask for. As I listen to what people ask for, we'll see what our revenues are. If our revenues are reasonably healthy, there's more we could do. We thought we had the money last year to do this. I don't agree with all the decisions that were made, but we had a balanced budget with more social supports in it. So we think there's a way to go forward. Hopefully we'll get enough revenue to do that. But at the end of the day, I honestly believe the county's going to have a discussion about tax revenues. And it's got to not put the burden on residential taxpayers, because there's too much money we're leaving on the table compared to Northern Virginia, where the business community apparently very happily pays these higher tax rates, but they also get things they need. And for how it plays out for us is, if I had a fund that if I had a tax on commercial property that built infrastructure, then I would have the benefit of, can you hear? Can everybody could slow down the side conversations so people can hear? Thank you. So where was I in that? So what we would like to be able to do is if we raised more money on commercial property, a bunch of transportation projects come out of the capital budget. The 52.6 million, or whatever it is we're putting in there of county cash might not have to be in that budget in order to do the things we want to do. So a simple thing like having a tax comparable to Virginia, but not as high because you're not building things like they build, would give us the little bit of flexibility in our existing budget to do more of the things that we want to do. And so I'm not looking to massively raise taxes everywhere. I'm trying to do something to put what I believe is the right tax on commercial property that supports growth and development, and that frees up some of our other money. So there are ways to get there. But if I propose that, residents have to show up, because if the council doesn't hear from people, if people don't articulate that they want different choices other than we're going to do less, which is the message that some people have put out there, is like, why are you still funding stuff after COVID's over? Why are we providing food programs? I don't know, because the lines are as long as they were before COVID or during COVID. I mean, we're doing the things we're doing because we need to do them. And if there are residents who believe this is what they want their county government to be like, and they're willing to look differently at how we structure taxes, we might be able to win this fight. They've won it in Virginia, so we ought to be able to win it over here. But I'm not a pessimist about this. I'm eternally optimistic that someday reason triumphs over other things. But I think our needs are pretty substantial. To the earlier question about why don't you build efficiencies, I don't control what parking planning zones. So I've already had conversations for what we pay to put somebody in a hotel, which is about $30,000 a year. I could buy small units for $30,000, period. And so you could buy 100 of them, house 100 individuals, or maybe a couple, or, 2 people and a kid or something. You could do stuff like that. And what you would spend in a year would be a fraction of what we're spending in a year now. So we're actually looking at that as an option. We got to find places to build them. You're going to have communities that don't get upset with you for building them, because, if everybody's going to say, no, I don't want this here, then we're never going to solve this problem. Then you can say you don't want to see homeless people. You do one thing or your other, but you're not going to make this problem magically disappear. So help me when I get to that point. Okay.
You have another question here?
Hi, good evening, County Executive Elrich. I had to write it down. First 2 weeks of school kind of burned my brain already. I am Tanya Perez Fuentes. I work for the Career Readiness Education Academy, also known as CREA. We are an MCPS program serving newcomer students ages 18 through 21 who are English language learners. These are students who, after leaving their countries of origin, found a safe haven here in Montgomery County. They are persistently seeking educational opportunities and training to allow them to give back to our community. I am here today because the CREA program has undergone recent budget cuts, preventing us from giving these MCPS students the services every other MCPS student receives. For example, a nurse, a counselor, a social worker, enough funds to fully staff our classrooms. Montgomery County has everything an immigrant would want. They have job opportunities. They are supported with housing needs, food, community services. But the county is dropping the ball when it comes to education for young adults who do not meet the requirements for a high school diploma. I'm here to ask you, Mr. Elrich, to consider CREA in the county's budget to support so we can provide these students the equity and opportunity they have a right to. And lastly, I invite you, sir, and Councilmember Mink, to come out and visit us. Ms. Evans has already been out. I would love for Drew to come out. Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. We have the most dedicated, hardworking students. We are open to all immigrant English language students, 18 to 21. So please consider putting us on your schedule, sir.
Is that part of the school system?
It absolutely is.
Okay.
These are MCPS students.
So I can't put money in a budget for a program the system doesn't ask for, to run any programs in Montgomery County. So they have to make a decision to put it in the budget. Maybe they would make a decision to put it in the budget if they felt there was more money to go around. I don't know what happened this year to why it got cut.
There are services that are being cut, sir. FY26 hasn't been able to assign a health tech to us due to our evening hours. It's a GED career technical program, MCPS. We are the only program in the county and actually in the state at the moment. And we have children with life-threatening medical conditions. We don't have the health support that we need. It's us, the educators that are serving them. We do not have mental health supports. And I do believe that all comes from the county, sir.
So we'll find, I don't know if all the mental health stuff, but I'll find out about the nurses and about why they haven't been able to staff it. And I'll come out and visit you when I get through these 11 meetings over the next 5 or 6 weeks. Then I'll take some time and come out to see what you're doing. Yes. Thank you. Jesse works on my staff.
Good evening, County Executive. My name is Courtney Hall. I'm the CEO for Interfaith Works. We serve people in Montgomery County who are experiencing poverty. There's been lots of discussion already tonight about the issues around rent or housing stabilization. Some of the shortcuts that you've already acknowledged had to be made. Some of the decisions had to be made because of funding. I just want to flag for you and for everyone else that one of the issues we're seeing is in our shelter system. So Interfaith Works operates 4 of the shelters in Montgomery County, 2 of which are for women, the others for all genders, and we're full. You heard one of the persons tonight say that she and her family are in hotels. That's certainly is what's happening on the family side. We also know that that's happening on the single side. So I want to acknowledge and recognize that you are in an almost impossible situation. I do also want to flag, though, and thank you for the extra attention that you gave to the shelter system for this fiscal year. We would not be able to do the work we're doing to accommodate the people at all of our shelters, which have all expanded the number of people we're serving, if it wasn't for that additional money. So I want to flag that. Also,
the county gets more money. Most of it winds up executing with the nonprofit partners because we're not running shelters ourselves. So to the extent that, we're engaged in this, I agree. I really want to explore the option of a different type of housing that the county could build because it would take some of the pressure off the budget. I mean, for everybody I'm spending $30,000 a year on, if I could provide individual units, that would be a net savings to the county and would allow us to do more things. And I will continue. I mean, we built the homeless shelter, as you know, in the middle of COVID when there was no budget for it and no plan for it. And I wasn't going to put people back out on the streets. So I told my people to build a shelter. And we did. I'm looking again for property where we can build smaller shelters, like on the order of 50 people, because it makes more sense than 200 people, I think. So we'll continue to look for other opportunities to do that. But I need some kind of break. It's the kind of thing where when I showed you that budget line and it's flat for capital budget, if that wasn't flat, I could consider other projects. If it's flat, I'm forever caught between underfunding the schools, which we do. We never fund their capital budget, or underfunding our transportation, which this year we had to cut by over $20 million because we couldn't fit that and we figured schools are more important than transportation. So we're making these Solomon's choices that are really hard to make. So I'd like the breathing room to be able to make what I think would be better decisions. And we need support on that. So you've always been supportive of, the budgets in general. We could use help, from your folks who are involved with you, for everybody to understand what the county has to do the things that people say we need to do. It's great to have everybody say you need to do this. You really got to get out and tell people that we want you to take the hard decisions so that we can be the place that we say we want to be.
We got one last question here, I guess.
Good evening, dear council member, executive member. I have a question. I run a sports organization. I have over 500 students. I run sports program like cricket and soccer, and I have paid a lot of amount out of my pocket. We have so much limited funds for the recreation activities. So how would you operate the budget for 2026 for the sports and recreation department, as we have so much limited cricket and soccer fields for this community? Thank you.
The only way to do that is to, go through the grant process and, put in the grant for your program. The other folks who are operating these things usually operate off of grants. I don't know if you're familiar with the department or if you've ever gone through the grant process before. If you haven't, JRU can connect you to give you an idea what the rules are for getting a grant, to kind of what you would have to go through to get in the grant. But that's the normal process. We don't put them into the base budget, but if they get approved by the people who review grant requests, then we can get them funded. Everybody good? Okay. Thank you all.
Orgullo, caramba. Vamos a recordarle básicamente